Hello everyone. So, I've come out into nature today because today is World Mental Health Day and I want to be able to share my story with you and also raise some awareness for this day and talk to you about what it is. The overall goal of World Mental Health Day is so that more people with depression in all countries can seek help. And also this video is sponsored by BetterHelp, and they are an online counselling website where you can get affordable counselling online. Also, you don't have to leave your house, and you get paired up with a licensed therapist within 24 hours of creating an account. So I think that could be useful to some of you, because I know when I was going through some struggles that I signed up to see a therapist, and there was a very long waiting queue, so I never ended up seeing anybody. So that's could be useful for you to have an online platform for this. I just wanted to put a little disclaimer. The stuff that I talk about with my story is quite deep, and it could be, I don't really like this word, but it could be triggering for some of you, so just keep that in mind. Everything that I tell you is coming from a deep place, and I recognise that if I share my story I can help other people. Many of you might know parts of my story, but I don't think I've ever sat down and made a video about the whole thing. So, I believe that my anxiety started when I was about 10 years old. I was a very gregarious and confident young girl. I used to like to sing all the time, and I was in drama class, and I was really good, and I just had so much confidence. I can remember the feeling, it was beautiful. But when I was around the age of 10, my parents got a divorce. And I didn't recognize it at the time, but it had a very profound impact on me. And also at this age, I just started high school. And something changed within me. I went from this confident girl with so much love and happiness to this shell of a teenager who was shy and very unsure of herself and just no confidence. And so what happened is I made friends whilst I was at high school, and I made friends with some of the most popular kids in the school, and I remember thinking how cool that was. And anyway, years progressed, and somehow my anxiety got worse, and every day was a constant struggle with my social anxiety. To go into school and to feel this crippling heartache of just, it feels like your throat or your heart is in your throat, and it was that every single day. And what happened is I had some bad experiences with some friends. We fell out, and by the end of my school years I was pretty much a loner. I spent at least the last 2 years or the last year of my high school being alone completely, not having any friends, and it was a very difficult time for me because I felt so isolated, and it was difficult. I just thought I couldn't make friends and that I wasn't worth anything, and my self-confidence was shot. My self-esteem was very low. When I left high school, I thought, oh, this is great. I'm going to go on to college and I'm going to be so much better, and things were better. They got slightly better, but my anxiety stayed the same. I managed to make friends, which was a big deal for me. Like, I I don't know why it was such a big deal, but I just felt like I couldn't make friends because I was just so socially awkward and strange. When I got to college, I had these new friends around me, and I just wanted more than anything to keep them. I was so afraid of losing them because of my social anxiety. And I didn't realize, again, I didn't know at the time it was anxiety. I just thought it was innate within me. I thought it was just this weird part of me that was just like fearful all the time, and it was a very confusing situation for me. And so I turned to the only thing that I could find as an aid. And so one day before college, I just had this idea to drink some alcohol and see if that placated me and made me feel more calm. And it worked like a charm. I remember drinking some vodka, and I went into one of my lectures, and I was just I felt so good, I felt so calm. And that was where the problem started. Because I became addicted to that. I felt like there was no other solution for me to deal with this anxiety. And so I carried on doing that. I would drink alcohol before I had lectures. And looking back, it's a really crazy thing to have done. But I was desperate to deal with this anxiety, and I didn't know any other way. I knew it was wrong to be doing that, but I just wanted to express myself and be open and not have fear. Fast forwarding on, I eventually joined university, and it was a scary time for me because I moved down south and I was away from my family. And I remember the first night my mum left me there. She had to. Going to university. And I just remember thinking, I don't want to sit in my room tonight and not go and make friends. And I have to go to this freshers thing and try and talk to people. And I was telling myself, you don't need the alcohol, you can do it without it. But I was so afraid that I caved, and I just drank some alcohol before I went there. And I was able to talk to lots of people. But the issue is that I was constantly battling with myself. I was constantly saying, it's not right that you have to drink every time you have a social interaction. That's so abnormal. What's wrong with you? And of course it is. But I didn't talk to anyone about it. I was ashamed about it. And this at the time felt like it was helping me, but really it wasn't. I eventually got to the stage where I wasn't having to drink by myself before I would go out to a social place. I would just drink whilst I was out, but I had to drink. Like, it was just the only way that I could just be normal. Like, I wasn't drinking to get drunk. I was drinking to become normal. Normal, in inverted commas. Anyway, what happened is my anxiety again did not get better. In fact, it got way worse. Of course it did. I was drinking alcohol every day. And because of that, because I was drinking like straight vodka, I developed a stomach ulcer. And this is kind of where I started to spiral. This is what leads me into my depression here. In my last year of university, I was so afraid of this anxiety, I didn't know what to do. So I went to the doctors and I got prescribed with some antidepressants. I was surprised at how easy it was to go and get some antidepressants. And at the time, this was the greatest thing ever, because I was just like, oh my God, I don't have to drink alcohol anymore. Because this stomach ulcer, I couldn't eat. I damaged my stomach so much that I was struggling to eat. And so I took these antidepressants and it was great. It felt like, oh my goodness, my anxiety is not there, and I don't feel anything. But that's the point. My anxiety was gone, but something was missing. I felt so numb. I felt unbelievably numb. And I just remember thinking to myself, is this really helping me? And one thing I will say to you, alcohol, you shouldn't use it for this sort of thing. But some people prescribe medicine. If you think it's helping you, then carry on with that. I'm not here to tell you what to do. This is just my own personal beliefs about what did and didn't work for me. And prescribing me with antidepressants definitely didn't work. I was looking for alternatives. I was still feeling just like something was missing. And at the time I was in a relationship, and it was quite a turbulent relationship. And I was struggling. I was struggling with that, very, very much so. I remember I was out with a friend one time, and we were at Camden Market, and we go into this shop, and there's this weed packet there, and I'm like, what? How are they able to sell this? And he was like, oh, that's the legal highs that you can buy. And this is the first time I'd ever come across it. So I was fascinated. I was like, holy crap, you can buy this stuff? That's awesome. But of course it was synthetic weed. And it was legal at the time. I haven't looked into it now, whether it's legal or not. Of course, it shouldn't be. In fact, I remember I took it home and I smoked it in my room by myself at night, because I thought, maybe this will heal me. And all I can say to you is that was one of the worst nights of my life. I spiraled into the deepest pit, and that was amplified by this drug. I smoked it alone because I couldn't talk to anyone about the situation I was dealing with. No one even knew I had anxiety, let alone was starting to struggle with some sort of depression. And that night I fell into some of the lowest vibrations, and I truly believe that I was in some sort of hell. Not visually. I was in my room. I can remember everything. I remember everything, how it felt, and I couldn't see anything that was visually like hell, but in my head it was like hell. And I can remember the feeling of dropping down onto these lower vibrations, and it was just pure. It was there was no love there, and it was some of the scariest moments of my life. So all I can suggest to you is never take those legal highs. The illegal ones might be better for you. But yeah, never smoke that stuff. Ever. You might, even if you're in a good state of mind, it all depends on your state of mind, of course, but from everything that I've heard of them, they're just stay away. Then the next thing that I turned to was, it was like this whole party craze, and it was laughing gas. We would fill up a balloon with laughing gas and you inhale it, and it gives you like a 30-second high. And I was like, I was loving it. Me and my roommates loved it. But then, it was so easy for me to get a hold of that one day I remember I ordered like a ton of these laughing gas canisters. And I remember it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd just woken up and this package arrived, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to have some now. I'm just going to have some of this laughing gas and hope that it makes me feel better. And so I started to take these laughing gas, and I must have gone through about 100. And all of a sudden I had these really dark thoughts come to me, and this is the first time and the only time that these thoughts have ever come to me. And it was to get a knife from the kitchen and this knife was blunt, and I knew that, and I remember thinking to myself, well, I'll just start with this. I'm sorry that this information is so in depth, and I've already recorded this video, and I cried. I cried, so I wanted to film it without crying. But yes, I'm sorry if this is triggering for you, but it has to be said, and there's beauty in this whole story, but I'll get to that. So what happened is I didn't want anyone to know about this. Like, all of this story, it all was kept secret. Like, it all revolves around me not telling anyone about this stuff. I was completely and utterly alone in all of this because I wouldn't talk to anyone about it. And so I was dealing with that awful drug trip. I was going through I think I just split up with this guy, and for some reason it was like the worst thing in the world to me, because even though we weren't right for each other whatsoever, very toxic relationship, that was the only thing that was keeping me going. So what I did is I didn't want anyone to know about this, and I looked at my wrist and I thought, I don't want to do it in a place that's visible. So I tried to find somewhere on my body that would be less visible, and I think I started to look at the inside of my arm, somewhere that I could easily hide. And I started to use the knife, and this is the first time I'd ever done anything like that. And it was painful. It was very painful. So I started to take laughing gas to ease the pain. But instead, that didn't actually help that much. I mean, I think I was suddenly starting to realize what I was doing. And as I say, this knife was blunt, so it wasn't doing much, but I could see blood. And I was just not feeling anything. I thought it would make me feel something, and it wasn't. But I suddenly just had a moment of, okay, that's it. That's enough. I have to get some help. And this was the turning point, but this was the hardest thing to do. I found the suicide hotline, and I called them. And it was very, I didn't have a great experience. Now, it's difficult for anyone to deal with this situation when they're talking with someone who's suicidal. So I don't blame them for this, and I'm sure that they've helped many people. But I had a bad experience in that this lady I was speaking to really, I just felt like she wasn't helping me, so I turned to the only option that I had left, and this was the last thing that I wanted to do, and that was to call my mum. And it took me ages to make that phone call, and when I did and I had to explain what I'd done, it was a mess. It was very, very difficult. And also my mum was a mess. You know, I'm telling her something that I don't want to tell her, and that I know is going to kill her, in that what I'd just done, explaining all of that. But I had to do something. There was nothing else I could do. Anyway, my mum booked a ticket the next day to come see me. It was like a 5-hour drive, and I remember she took me away to a hotel. I didn't tell my friends what was going on. I hadn't told anyone anything, so by that point it was no good to even mention it. And she took me away, and to this day she tells me, or at least I remember that she told me what I was like whilst I was in that state. Like, I'd pretty much reached rock bottom, and I think I was depressed for about a month. But after that phone call and after all of that, it was difficult, but eventually I found a way out of it. I found a way out. And I remember my mum telling me, because this was a complete blur to me, this time that I was, depressed, and I don't remember. I don't really remember what happened. I remember stepping outside of the car, it being so bright outside, and I just wanted to curl up in a ball. And I remember my mum telling me that I just kept constantly repeating the words, what's the point in life? I don't get it. I don't get it. Anyway, what's even funnier about this situation, not only was I dealing with some sort of drug addiction, breaking up with my boyfriend, depression, but I had to write my dissertation. And somehow, I don't know how, but I managed to write 13,000 words, give in my dissertation, and be done with it. I had a job as well. I had a part-time job that I worked at, and I remember my mum had to go in for me and say, look, she can't work here anymore. So everything had just collapsed around me, but all I could focus on was getting that dissertation done. And eventually I did. And I passed. Just to let you know. I passed. And there was a couple instances that it was difficult after that, but my saving grace was that I finished university and I did all of that. I came home, and that's when I started making videos. How funny, right? I started making ASMR videos. I found this, I'd been with this ASMR community for years, but I'd never thought about making a video, and all of a sudden I was just like, right, I'm just going to make a video and be done with it. And I was trying to find my path from there, and I was still making wrong decisions. I was coming from a very dark place, and I was making some wrong decisions still. But I had to share that story with you because I have never felt that low since then. And so I was at the bottom. I was at the very bottom there. But now in my life, I feel so blessed. And I couldn't be happier with my life. And this is why I make videos, is because I've been there. I've been at the lowest places. And if I can get through all of that, then I know that you can as well. And I do my best to give you all the tips that I have in my power to help you in your journey. Some tips I'm going to quickly give you. If you're suffering with depression, anxiety, whatever it is, would be to look at your diet first of all. In amongst all of this, I was drinking, and I was also eating the worst possible food. I would think to myself, I can't eat much, so I'm just going to go to the corner shop and I'm just going to buy sweets and chocolate because I feel like that's the only thing lifting me up right now. And that would be all I would eat in a day. And McDonald's, we used to go to McDonald's all the time. And again, I used to see it as like a reward. It was like, oh, this will lift me up. I'm feeling crap today. I need a pick me up. But of course, that pick me up lasts for about a few minutes whilst you're eating the food. And then once you've eaten it, then it sets in. It's like oh my god, what did I just eat? Is my body going to be okay? Is it getting any nutrients? Well, no. Hell no. It's not. 2 more tips for you would be read books. There is tons of self-help books out there. There is a story for you, I promise you. And you will find the right story. You just have to look for it. And the 3rd, please, my dears, don't do what I did and keep this a secret for so goddamn long. I was so afraid of people's judgment of me, that they were going to think I was the weirdest creature on earth. And then I was crazy for going through this stuff. Like, why would I be scared of people? Like, what sort of weird thing is that? That's social anxiety. That's something that we need to talk about, because once we do, we understand it. Talk to someone about it. Don't let it be the case that you have to tell the ones you love in the worst possible situation like I did. Having to call up your mum and tell her that, it's awful. It's okay. It's okay. So, yes. I love all of you. All of you have a story to tell. And all of you are incredibly strong, stronger than you realise. And this painful stuff that you have to go through, I promise you, it's setting you up for this beautiful life. As I say, I'm blessed in my life now. And I can look back at that memory. As much as I don't like to delve into that memory, I'm doing it because I know it helps those of you that may or may not be in those stages right now. I also take full responsibility for the fact that I was depressed and it was my own fault. And this is something that's helped me a lot. Yes, there was things that happened to me as a child that weren't great. We all have that. But if you hold on to those painful memories and say that it's the world's fault and it's not your fault, you give away your power and you can't heal yourself. I've had to really tell myself, look, it was your fault that you didn't have friends. Not in a mean way, but it was your fault, but it also means that you can change that. You're the person with all the power, no one else. I hope that makes sense. Because I don't want you to give away your power, and you don't have to do that if you just take responsibility for your life. Take responsibility for the pain that you may be feeling, because it's usually self-inflicted. But as I say, I'm not here to preach to you. I know how self-inflicted that pain is because I did it to myself. All of the drugs, all of that stuff that I did to cope made it 10 times worse. There is way better ways to deal with this. and I teach you them in my videos. Meditation, positive affirmations. My anxiety is still there to this day, but it doesn't control me. It's there like an old friend, but it doesn't control me. So just know that. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It wasn't as expressive as I was when I first filmed it, because I don't want this to be a sad thing. I want this to be just straight to the point and honest. But I hope that it helps you to clear something in your own journey in life and soul. Also, if you are struggling, then I encourage you to check out BetterHelp. They approached me for this video, and I feel like it's a blessing. It's a real blessing for me to have been able to express this. So if you think you need some help in that area, then check out the link below in this video. Just quickly to tell you what the process is: when you create an account, you go through a questionnaire, and their algorithm will match you with a therapist based on your answers. And if you find any reason that you don't like the therapist that you matched with, it's really easy to change it. BetterHelp goes to great lengths to help find you a therapist, and one that you're comfortable with, one who will best understand what you're going through. The person that I spoke to on the phone that time, and when I was trying to look into therapy, it was a pretty bad setup, and so I think this online counselling website is a really good idea, and I hope it can help some of you. Peace, love, and light to all. You're all so beautiful, and there's so much light and love in this world, and I hope you can feel that. I love you all.